Oh, you can sound a little bit more excited than that. I have to be the most tired and weary person in the room. And I can do some jumping jacks right about now. And I'm not even drinking caffeine. Is that the problem? That's the solution. It's all about bananas. Okay, so, hi, welcome. For who just came to join us? Who came out? Who wasn't here earlier? Who are the new people? Hi, new people. Welcome. So that's good because we need your energy. First of all, I want to thank you for coming. This is Amplify Baltimore quarter number 2. Can you believe that? We are on our second conversation of the day, workforce and economic development. But much like we did before, we have the contributions from the wonderful children at the Walbrook Project. So is Miss Pride here? Hi, dear. She's going to come up and introduce this video for us. We'll see the video and then we'll get into our discussion.
Good afternoon. Hi, everyone again. So I'm from the Walbrook Project, which is a project that was funded by Ignite Baltimore, and we take place out of the Walbrook Library. We arm teens with the mini cameras to document their community, and this will culminate in a film screening at the Walbrook Library on April 7th, which we invite you all to. But April was kind enough to invite the teens to talk about the issues that are talked about today. So we saw a video about education, and this next video is about workforce. I do want to make a couple comments about this one. These are all rough cuts, number one. And this one was taped during break, so there will be some things going on in the background. We try to do a lot in a small space and in a small set of time. But also, the last video, the two young men on the end, both want to be graphic designers. So when we think about workforce development, I hope we think about how we can nurture creative careers. We talk a lot about trades and that sort of thing, but we have a lot of students who want to be artists, who want to be creative. How can we fit that into the discussion of workforce development? Thank you. Is it easy for young people to get jobs in Baltimore? Easy? Why do you say no?
If you don't have, if there weren't programs like Youth Works or job opportunities being offered at Walbrook, then you really wouldn't have many jobs. Like the only places we probably end up working is McDonald's, Burger King, fast food restaurants, chicken box joints.
So Youth Works is a program you think it is effective?
Yes.
For the most part, yes.
Tell me why.
Well, I believe it is because you can get certain hours through Youth Works and you can have a summer job and you pay during the summer. You can put that money aside for certain things.
So have you participated in Youth Works?
I have. I believe it was a good experience. I learned some stuff about myself. I met new people, established new friends. I learned a bit more about the library system.
So does your school talk a lot about work in terms of after you graduate high school or after people graduate high school, or the importance of education and work? Is there talk about the connection between education and work?
Yes, it is. At school, it really influences having a strong career after school, because they had a career day where people came and talked about their careers, owning old businesses. Who was a lawyer. And it was even one guy who was a bus driver, and he said how he didn't get a good education and how he ended up with that job. But then he became owner of a big bus company in Maryland or whatever. So, and he had little surveys checking out what you wanted to be. So I thought that was a real good idea.
Really, my school doesn't so much talk about work. It talks more about you being in college. I'm surprised that we are regarded as one of the best schools for work ethics, because surprisingly, although we're a prestigious school known for academics and things, we don't have a work study program.
I wanted to be a lawyer, because I've been really informed about what it takes to be there, going to college, passing the bar exam, and being really serious about school. So that's mostly what I'm about. But I haven't really heard or been informed about the businesses or like companies where you can actually work at.
So do you think there's anything that Baltimore can do to employ more young people or to get more young people working, as well as get them working in fields that they might end up having a career in?
I think they could have more jobs during the school year instead of just being summarized, and that it can be announced in school rather than someone have to go out and find, get resources for a job.
What could happen is, well, majority of the money that, well, here's how I see it. Majority of the money that's being used for Baltimore City, I think a lot of it is actually going towards like the jail system. 65 million, and $65 million is about to be cut from Maryland's educational system. And surprising fact is 15 million of it is about to be cut from Baltimore City educational system. Funny thing is, I'm trying to understand why we're the ones that's receiving the brunt, well, so much of the money being cut. If we're a small city, one, two, our educational system, even though we do have high test scores and things, there's not really that many job opportunities in Baltimore City. But if you compare like the general income between people that live in Baltimore City and people that live in Montgomery County, which is the wealthiest county in the nation at the time, then really shouldn't they be the ones that's receiving so much of the cutbacks instead of us getting it, which in turn is making it harder for us to go out and get jobs, to get better educations, to get the programs and the grants that we need to make sure that this small city can actually get to, like, somehow at least achieve what Montgomery County is already doing.
Adults, do you hear about maybe your parents or parents' friends or other adults talking about the job market in Baltimore?
No, my mother's been looking for a job for nearly a year, hasn't found one that she can do or she's qualified for.
Thank you, Felicia. Will you put up the slide for workforce and economic development, please? Thank you. You ready for our panelists? You guys are so sober. I'm about to shake you up a little bit. We got some brilliant people on this panel. So, we have today Natasha Douglas from Goodwill Industries. Lori Fagan from Secours Family Support Center. Unsolo Holly from the Center for Urban Families. Ralph Moore from the St. Francis Academy Community Center. You got a little fan out there, Ralph. Marques Ogden, he is the founder and CEO of Kayden Premier Enterprises and also a former Baltimore Raven. Jason Perkins-Cohen from the Job Opportunities Task Force. Karen Sidnick, who is the director of the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. And Deirdre Webb, also from Goodwill Industries. So, before they begin to talk, I want to know what you guys think about how we're faring with regard to workforce and economic development. Are there some disparities between the perceptions that you all have as the people of Baltimore and what we are being told vis-a-vis some of the organizations that people represent in the city? Anybody want to just shout out some things? Kelly Ray?
There are two things, actually, I wanted to bring up. One is assistance to those in middle upper management and getting jobs. Because I just feel like there's no resources out there for people like me who are at work, who are, not getting hired in low-level jobs because I'm overqualified, and I totally understand that I would probably continue looking for a
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm just curious. I lived here in Baltimore for the last 5 years, and I lived in a lot of different cities. In most cities, I use, for example, the research triangles of Durham, Raleigh, Chapel Hill. Use that as an example. They have a strategic regional plan to kind of take the college kids, infuse them into city government, private sector, and then they bring in other financial, you know, backers that prop up that particular community. And here in Baltimore, you have a lot of educated people. However, it doesn't seem like there's a central plan for this city to tap into those resources or even attract those resources. But if you look to our south, as far as D.C. and Northern Virginia, or even in the New York, Boston area, you see more of a strategic plan to, fuel those college kids and entrepreneurs and kind of prop up the workforce or economy. But I don't see that in Baltimore.
Got it. Any other quick reflections? Okay. Ms. Sitnick, I'm going to start with you as the guru for employment in Baltimore City and ask you to consider two perspectives. The first is the perspective of someone who is looking to relocate to the Baltimore area for employment, who probably has a skill set to contend for any of the jobs in our growing sectors, but also from the perspective of those of us who live in the city who have been lifelong residents who may not have the skill sets that the new emerging markets are demanding. And there are a host of people on the stage who are working with those populations intimately. But from a citywide perspective, if you could tell us sort of how you're kind of appealing to both of those groups and what the city plan is really with regard to that.
Okay, can you all hear me? I don't need to have this closer to me. Can you hear me? We can't see you guys out there, so I'm not going to...
Can you raise the lights,
Thanks.
the house lights? Thank you so much.
First of all, thank you, April, for inviting me to be here today, and I want to thank all of you for your interest in workforce development. Economic development, obviously, is the core of what I get up every morning to do, so thank you for being here. This is a very challenging time, and I'm not going to tell you something you don't already know. Since 2007, the economy has thrown more challenges in front of people who've already had challenges than ever before. And so it is a very difficult time for people to find work. I absolutely agree. Some people are finding it takes 6 months to a year. These are people with skills to get back into the workforce. And we have sort of a double whammy. We have the economy that has truly made it difficult for employers to feel comfortable hiring people. And then we have, this is the second decade of the 21st century, right? And so the things that used to be assets in terms of being competitive in the job market are no longer assets, they're requisites. You cannot get into the job market today if you do not know how to use computers. That is just a given. In fact, 90% of the applications today are done online. So that's number one. And the demands in the 21st century workplace are greater than ever before on people. So I put that out because that's not an excuse for the fact that we aren't able to help more people get skilled up. It's just a reality, and it's also my plea to remind everybody that you cannot stop skilling up, even if you have a job. The young woman who mentioned she's having a hard time getting into the labor market, but getting back into the labor market, and she's got skills. Yeah, it's because things are moving so rapidly. Technology is moving so fast that you have to stay up. So where does that leave people who are even behind the bar? And we have in Baltimore, our city offers training, job readiness, career counseling to anybody and everyone who wants to take advantage of it at 3 one-stop centers throughout the city. So I invite everybody to come to the centers. They're open, they're friendly. We had 29,000 people walk through our doors in the last 18 months. People don't necessarily know we're there. We're on the east side, and I've got materials that I will actually leave on the table. On the east side, northwest, central city, we're not going to ask you anything unless you want to tell us.
21,000, that sounds like a high number to me.
29,000? Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Are you seeing an increase in numbers?
We have seen an increase since 2007. Absolutely.
So from 2007 to the number that you just gave, what's the increase?
About 30%. And that's because of the employment, actually the unemployment. And I don't want to take too much time, but we were
Sure.
talking about the fact that if you look at the statistics, the employment rate may be 10%, 10.6%, reflecting those people who are still looking for work. There are many, many people who pulled themselves out of the search. So we know that there are a lot of people out there. So I'm just going to say that there are resources, there are training programs. People need to come into the centers and really take advantage of the support that we have there. And then my last comment is, because I loved hearing the comment that was made earlier about, nurturing creative careers. Our future workforce is really now. And we need to be embracing every single young person in our school system to get them on the right pathway. And I can talk about some of the things we're doing for our young people later on. Is that okay?
Jason Perkins-Cohen, I'm coming to you next from the Job Opportunities Task Force. You do a lot of advocacy work, and actually Jason has to leave here a little early because he's going to Annapolis to stand for the people of Baltimore and the people of the region with regard to workforce and economic development issues. But he is a wealth of knowledge about how things are happening, especially around the Maryland General Assembly issues, and he's going to give you an update on some of the work that they're doing.
Great. Thank you, April, and thanks for inviting me. Hello, fellow amplifiers. If you're like me, you like to have sort of very concrete things to do. And so this day is really fortuitous. As April said, we're sort of towards the end of our Maryland General Assembly session. We have 29 days left. But before I get local, I want to go national just for 1 second. At the federal level in Washington, House Bill 1, HB 1, would essentially eliminate job training across the country. It would certainly eliminate the Workforce Investment Act, which means that all the good programs that Karen is running, the one-stop centers, they would be shutting their doors. Many of the youth centers would be shutting their doors. Many nonprofits get their money through the Workforce Investment Act to provide their training. They wouldn't have those resources anymore either. So it is absolutely critical that you contact your legislators and let them know that training is important. It should be obvious in this economy, but somehow that voice has gotten dimmed. House Bill 1 is probably not going to pass, but they are going to make a lot of cuts. And it's important that your representatives know where you stand on those issues. So I hope that you will do that. Now, coming more locally, as I said, just 29 days left, and a lot of these bills, most of the bills in Annapolis, whatever bill we're talking about, are really getting decided in this next few weeks. So there's a bill, for example, on Tuesday that will be on the Senate floor, Senate Bill 132. It's about credit checks or credit reports. And currently, why do people have bad credit? Well, they don't have a job. They get behind on their bills. And when you apply for a job, many employers, most employers, check your credit before they'll hire you. And if you don't have good credit, many times they won't hire you. The other two most common reasons are divorce and medical debt. None of those have anything to do with whether you're good at your job. It'll be discussed on the Senate floor this week, on Tuesday, starting on Tuesday. Again, amplify your voice. Let them know how you feel about these issues. And I want to be clear that even if you don't agree with what I'm saying, amplify your voice anyway. Maybe these aren't the issues for you, but it's really important that your legislators know where you stand. I'm happy to lose a battle when a legislator says, we've heard a lot of people from the other side. That's not typically what happens. Okay, they're not actually hearing from people at all. So I really want to encourage you, pick a bill that's of interest to you in this week, whether it's one of these or not, and please contact your legislator. If you don't know how to contact your legislator, please get in touch with us. I don't want to take too much time. I want to talk about one other really important bill that is meaningful to everyone. It's about unemployment insurance. Maryland has an opportunity. Lots of people are unemployed. Lots of people have been unemployed for a long time. And at some point, your ability to receive unemployment insurance benefits stops. And the federal government has made an offer to Maryland and to every state, and Maryland's one of 9 states that haven't taken them up on this offer, to basically say, we would like people to still get unemployment as long as they're legitimately trying for work. And the federal government would pay for it. Now, if Maryland were to pass this law, which will be Senate Bill 882, House Bill 1228, it'll be heard on March 22nd, which means there'll be a hearing. Anybody can sign up to testify. The federal government would basically be infusing our economy with about $250 million. Now, you might be sitting out there thinking, well, I'm not unemployed, or I haven't been unemployed for a long time, or maybe I don't even know anyone unemployed, so why do I care? And I don't know if that actually relates to any of you, or it certainly doesn't relate to me. But maybe you own a grocery store. Well, what do people do when they get unemployment insurance benefits, or when people have been unemployed and they get a little money? They go out and they spend in their grocery stores, they spend it on utilities, they spend it on rent. So it's infusing the entire economy. It's absolutely critical that Maryland does this. Again, it's coming from the federal government. It's a huge stimulus to our state and our local economy. I really encourage your voice. I have a host of other bills to talk about. I'll stop there, but please ask me to talk about more other bills or in more detail about these.
Thanks. Rob Moore, you do some interesting work with the community around job placement issues with regard to at St. Francis Academy, and I think sometimes we miss some things that you are really keen on, and I just wanted to ask you, what are we missing?
Well, I think what we're missing is that we've got to connect, or we've got to amplify our efforts by working together, all the groups in the area that are working on jobs and employment issues, and we've got to connect with the people who are unemployed. The Baltimore Sun reported on March 24th, 2004, that there were as many as 200,000 people unemployed in the city of Baltimore. And a lot of people don't believe that. I tend to believe it. David Simon, in his editorial this morning, he had an editorial this morning talking about Snoop being arrested and all, and it was entitled Judging the Other America. And he said in his editorial that it's been estimated that nearly half of the adult African Americans in Baltimore are unemployed or underemployed. That's the staggering kind of numbers we're talking about. Now, I don't see this city having much of a future if those kind of circumstances continue to exist. It's killing the city, no doubt about it. Karen talked about how 90% of the applications now are expected to be done online, and I'm sure that's true. That is a very difficult, laborious, painstaking process. And I just sat with somebody a couple of days ago. We sat there for about 3 hours going through, for a job he already had. He had to bring in some documentation on the first day of work on Monday. And it's just incredible, but for the time being, we have to go through that. And so we have to align ourselves with those who are unemployed and work with them and work real hard. And we've got to fight about this. Now, I'm wearing my T-shirt from Martin Luther King's birthday celebration that we held, which is essentially what we call a job fair, and it's a little bit more than that. But a lot of people don't realize that in 1963, the March on Washington was themed for jobs and freedom. And Martin Luther King was all about fighting for jobs. There's a nice picture of him at a demonstration. This wasn't the March on Washington, but another demonstration, fighting for jobs for people. I think he realized that it's very important that people have the capacity to support themselves and to support their families, and I'm sure he believed that it was the best anti-poverty program available. Anyway, I'll stop so that others will have a chance to jump in here. But we just have to realize what we're up against. You know, we had steel factories before, now we have drug factories. And we ought to recognize that the war on drugs is being perpetrated mostly in the inner cities where brown and black people are. And so that makes it difficult for them to be able to get jobs once they are free from incarceration. And so it's a bit of a mess that I think we can find our way through if we all get together and work together, if we connect with the unemployed and demand more and better jobs for people. I'll stop there for the moment.
Thanks. So, Lori Fagan, I met you last week when I took a tour of your wonderful facility on Fulton Avenue, Secours Foundation Family Support Center. You deal with a really precious population. I want you to talk a little bit about your work and how you prepare the folks in your care with entering into the job market, and more importantly, what are some of the major obstacles that they're facing that we could help you and that population with succeeding at?
Thank you, April. Thank you for having me. I work at the Family Support Center, and my job is very laborious because I work with a population of young parents who are probably, in many people's eyes, undervalued, and they're very misrepresentative because of the fact that a lot of them live in a bubble. They're there because they want child development skills for their young children, which we house a child care center there for children between the ages of 0 and 47 months just before they turn 4. What happens is they come there because they want parenting, because maybe the courts have told them they need parenting, and then on top of it, they need their GED. Many of them have no desire to get their GED or get a job, but they're there because they were told they have to be there for a certain period of time. we keep them there because many of them, once they're there, find out that I don't want to end up in the same place that many of my family members have been in, because they look at the staff and the people there to be an anomaly. We're not normal people. They don't see anything outside of this because the cycle goes deep. And they live in this little bubble that they don't believe that they have to go out and get their GED because the government will take care of them for the rest of their lives. And if they have another baby, they'll continue to give them more money. And one of the main goals of the program there is that they will get their GED, they'll become a better parent, that they'll get a job simultaneously as they work on their GED, and that they become a productive citizen in their community. Tough job when no one around them is being productive. No one says that they should get a job. Some of their parents that they're living with say to them, why are you going there? You're going to be just like me. Why are you taking your babies over there? They're not helping you. And the fact is that they stay. We have over 42 families that we're assisting, and we have a waiting list of 50 trying to get into our program. We had to slim down our program that they couldn't come 4 days a week, that they had to come Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, because the demand was just too high. What we need is more money in order to house a bigger program so that we can help more people like that, because we don't advertise anything. They tell their friends who are in the same place, because all of them, unfortunately, are almost in the same boat. And what we're telling them is that their job is to pull another person up. So my job is threefold. I want to make sure those babies get the best life that they can have, make sure that mom understands her value and that the baby can't have a good life without her getting a good life, and 3, that there's another world outside of the world that they live in. So my help is that I need is that we went and spent a whole day in Annapolis because they want to cut our programs, and I'm not the only family support center in Maryland. There are 23 other family support centers in the same boat with the same type of population in different areas in the state of Maryland. We need to make sure that they don't cut our programs so that we can continue to provide these services. And if they cut those programs, that we're going to continue to have a population of young ladies and young men who feel that they don't have to do anything but wait on the government. And little do they know that that's going to end sooner than later. So that's where I am, and that's what I want you to think about as you go through the world and talking to other people. Let them know that there's a program out there that needs your help, and it needs volunteers, and on top of it, we need money. Thank you.
Mr. Hawley, you are a part of the Center for Urban Families. We've heard so much about the contributions that your organization continues to make and the models that you create that are replicated across this country. But your particular program, the Career Path program, is an extension of the STRIVE program. Could you tell us a little bit more about what your outcomes have been?
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Oh, okay. Good afternoon. My name is Unsolo again. I run the Career Path program for the Center for Urban Families. That is an extension of our STRIVE job readiness training. It's a 3-week training that once they complete it, they're help identify employment, then they're transitioned to me to develop an occupational skill to enhance their opportunity to find employment. But the problem we ran into around 2008 was that entry-level positions were requiring that hard skill certification, which we weren't equipping our clients with while they were in the STRIVE program. Second problem was our clients could not pass the academic assessment to get in the hard skills training. So adult education became a critical need for us, and I'm pretty sure many of my colleagues on this panel. Once we get our adults into the program and they get the motivation to want to do better, they realize that they aren't smart enough, essentially, to get in, and then that their confidence, dwindles, and then they're no longer interested, and they revert back to those negative behaviors and social barriers that they're trying to escape. So, in my current role, one of the things I would like for us to amplify is our government to identify funds for occupational trainings that are actually hiring individuals. The Green Initiative is great in theory, and in training, but when it comes down to employing individuals, that is a very difficult challenge for unskilled or low-skilled labor force. The healthcare industry is very big here in Baltimore, but what we also have to amplify is for men to identify that that is not a female's profession to work in the healthcare industry. There are a lot of opportunities for men I currently provide nursing assistant trainings, and I can't tell you how many employers that we need male CNA, GNAs, simply because the clients, the patients are getting heavy.
Huge, yeah.
And they need 2 women to do what one man could do. So if we had more men in the facilities, that would increase their productivity. So that is a crucial need, is to get men interested in certain careers in the healthcare industry where they could have a viable career.
Got it. So we have 2 people here from Goodwill Industries, and I know most of you are like, Goodwill, those are those cute commercials with that guy talking about Ann Taylor and all that stuff. But they do so much more than that, and I had the opportunity to work with you guys when we did our first series on offender reentry. And I want the world to know about the breadth of the services that you provide. And I'm going to start with you, Deirdre, because I don't think that people understand how important the juvenile services component of your work is. And then we'll go to you, Natasha, and you can talk about the case management services.
Thank you. To kind of piggyback on to what Ms. Fagan said, I work with young people who come through Goodwill for job readiness, life skills training. And like Ms. Fagan, we are looking at generational issues that are impacting our young people. Not only are their family members asking them, why are you going there? But when they come, their family members are saying, so now you think you're better than us. So what we strive to do with Goodwill, and the gentleman here, Ralph, talked about it earlier, Mr. Moore talked about it earlier, that factories moved out and the drug factories moved in. And since 2006, Goodwill has been working to build a presence in Southwest Baltimore. After doing some research, holding some focus groups, the words that they got back from the community were help our young people. So we do job readiness and life skills training, but we also offer family services, because we recognize that working with the young person alone wasn't enough. We have young people who go through our training in our Goodwill boutique. That is a training site for teens who go through job readiness in Southwest Baltimore or receive services in Southwest Baltimore. And we had family members waiting on Friday for their stipend check. They receive a stipend for working in the store being trained. We have family members waiting for those stipend checks. So we started making connections with those family members to provide connections to resources to help build the entire family up, so that there was not such a strain on the young person coming through our program. We were finding that they were coming in enthused, and halfway through, they didn't want to be bothered because they were training and not seeing any benefits from their training, because their stipend fund was going to the family. So they'd get a check on Friday and didn't have lunch money on Monday. So we're working really hard to help build the entire family up, making those connections so that the family becomes a support system to the young person. And our goal is one family at a time to start to make those kinds of changes. How can you help Amplify Baltimore? For us, we also have a program that receives those WIA funds that House Bill 1 is threatening to cut. We work with young people who are out of high school, have their diplomas or GEDs, but are in transition. They're not sure about college. They haven't been able to find work. And what we've done with the funding that we've received from the Baltimore Workforce Investment Board Youth Council is to partner with Anne Arundel Community College to provide customer service certification training. We have young people who are going through training and at the end will be certified by the National Retail Federation. We partner with Art with a Heart to build in an art component to teach them leadership development, help them to think outside of the box, be creative, get those creative juices flowing, and incorporate that into their training. They spend time in our Goodwill retail stores learning how to put those customer service skills into action. What we need is to get the word out, to let young people know that we're there, that this service is available to them. They receive a stipend while they're in the training. someone mentioned earlier that, oh, my train of thought is just gone, thinking too fast.
That's okay. All that brilliance.
But someone mentioned earlier that, oh, it was the young lady in the audience, that a young person went through a program but did not get what she felt was the assistance that she needed to help get a job. And while our young people are in that program, they receive case management services. They do receive job readiness assistance, but what that job readiness assistance is designed to do is to help them to use the tools that they've gained in their training so that then they can go out and on their own resources, selling and marketing themselves, be able to find themselves a job. And I think that can be discouraging for young people because we're in a society where there's a microwave mentality. I went through this program, now I want you to give me a job. And what we're trying to get our young people to understand is that what has been given to you is an opportunity to use the tools that you've gained so that you can now market yourself and get yourself a job. Once young people going through this program are employed, I think one of the benefits that they receive from this WIA-funded program is that they also receive a year of follow-up so that not only are they in the job, but we can help them to hold on to that job and make their next career moves. We can come in and mediate if there's a problem with an employer to help them not lose that job. So help us to amplify Baltimore by letting young folks know what's available and helping us to hold on to our funding.
Thank you. Ms. Douglas.
Yes, thank you. As the program manager of case management services at Goodwill Industries of the Chesapeake, I am charged with actually facilitating our open enrollment, which is every Friday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. every morning. When the individuals come in to enroll, one of the biggest deficits that we're seeing is that they do not have ID. And I spend a bulk of my time educating them about the importance of having ID to able to obtain employment. In addition to that, they also have other factors such as substance abuse, housing, education. 1 in 5 of every person enrolling will tell me that they do not have any work history at all.
And what's the average age
The average age?
of people enrolling?
We are all starting to see an older workforce come in, so I would say about around 40. So we can have individuals actually walking through our doors that have reached age 37 and will also tell us, I do not have any work history at all.
Wow.
20% of the individuals that walk through the door have literacy issues. They are unable to complete the enrollment form. So we spend a bulk of the time trying to locate resources for literacy. And so we have partnered with the Baltimore City Community College to bring pre-GED and GED classes on site to better enforce them while they're in the job readiness training classes. One of the things that we also try to enforce to assist these individuals who have minimal or no work history is transitional work, which is also a program that I oversee. And so we have individuals that we identify that are in the job readiness programs that we actually send them to our retail store locations to receive 20 hours of work training experience for 12 weeks. What we learned through research is that we need to extend that 12-week period to at least 6 months for them to actually benefit from the experience. But because we have such a waiting list of individuals that need to benefit from this program, that we are unable necessarily to do an entire 6 months. What I would want the amplify Baltimore and to think about is literacy issues, but also financial literacy, because what is happening is many of the individuals that we are serving, once they do receive income, they do not necessarily know how to use the income to supplement their lifestyle.
Thank you so much. So I know I've been heavy on the population of the folks who are probably most disinherited with regard to workforce and economic development. I want to get back to you, Ms. Setnick, really quickly, because we spent a whole lot of time at the front end on this population. I want you to give us a sense of the numbers of the people in our population who are probably dealing with some of the safety net issues that have been discussed on the front end of this, so that people in the audience and when folks watch this later can get a real understanding of why I spent so much time on that.
Well, again, I don't think that the numbers that we are getting from the statisticians, from the where we're able to get our unemployment statistics are, in fact, telling the full picture. And the truth be told is that there may well be 200,000 Baltimore residents unemployed. We simply don't know the number. But I will say, and everything you've heard today, and this is really so essential, the job market is not forgiving. The job market is not going to take 10 steps back and say, you don't have your GED, that's fine, we're going to hire you. They are absolutely not. In fact, unfortunately, the job market's turning up the heat. And you may have heard this term before. It's called the Middle Skills Initiative. Skills for America, the Skills to Compete, whatever it's called. But what it really is a drumbeat that the jobs of the 21st century demand at least 2 years of some post-secondary education or training beyond high school. And I have to underscore beyond high school because we are still grappling with a dropout rate in our education system where the kids are coming out with no high school diploma. So education and adult literacy, and we've heard that before, we have to do whatever we can to get more people engaged in getting their skill set up so that we can help them get into the training programs that they can benefit from.
But I think we have to work real, real hard to help people get there. You know, I'm not sure there are enough resources and enough activity to make that happen. You know, we can't just say people need to do this. We need to help them get there because we need them to become citizens of the city who pay taxes, who are helping to support the life in the city and all of that. That's why I think we have to get out and work with those folks and connect with them and fight for more and better jobs. And I don't know if I'll get a chance to say this again, but we're having a meeting about this called the Full Employment Baltimore Group on Monday, the 21st of March, over at St. Francis Academy. I have flyers if you want one, but feel free to join us. I think the only way that things are going to change is if we work together and if we put a big push into the system to make this work for people and work with them to make that happen.
But could I say one quick thing? We need to define what help is before we start helping people. There are a lot of people who I call professional program hoppers who they'll go to JOTF for a pre-apprenticeship, then they'll come back to CFUF for a program, then I'll see them 3 weeks later at Goodwill, or then we'll find out they were violated on probation and end up back in prison. So we have to solidify, well, first the definition of how we're going to help, and then set a standard of that our clients need to meet. And I promise you, if you set a standard, they will meet the standard. If you lower it, they'll see it there, and then they'll manipulate the system. But
Program hoppers are pretty much a minority, though, I would think. That's not most people. Most people want to work, they want a job. No, I think that's true. I don't want to turn on poor and unemployed people. I can't sit in a panel that does that. And so, yeah, there are a few people who do that. You can find little exceptions to anything, and people who work any kind of program or system. But most people, I think, are ready to sit there and work through an application, and they want to work desperately. They really do.
Well,
we haven't heard from Marques yet.
Wait a minute, this is my panel. Hold up. Let Westport come out, because. Woosah, back to house. Okay, so we're going to get into that because my audience is really, really bright, and they're ready for you, aren't you? Yeah, I know. Okay, so Marques, I really wanted you on this panel because, you know, you could have really done anything and been anywhere. You know, you're a former Raven. You're a former Raven. Okay, I'm over it. But you also chose to start a company as a contractor. And that's a tough market. As you well know, you're good, you're tenacious at what you do. But you have some challenges from the business end as an employer, but of trying to make sure that your company gets the funding and all of the things that you need, but also with trying to get an adequate work population. So I invited you to be on this panel because of that. So I wanted you to speak to both of that, like the people that you get to employ, what you're looking at, what you face, what are the challenges, but also what is your challenge as, a young businessman in the area.
Well, thanks, April, for having me here. I've known Ralph for a long time. He's very passionate about what he believes, which is a really good thing. Again, I own a construction company called Kayden Premier Enterprises. We're based out of Baltimore City, right off Pulaski Highway. Started in 2006, self-financed, self-funded, brought a business partner in 2008. The biggest problem I've been having, and I'm sure a lot of people are hearing the same thing, is the banking industry is really not letting go of capital to help employers like myself hire workforce people. I mean, I have right now, I was talking to a couple people on the panel, and then Dave was in my leadership class, and so is April. I have 18 jobs under contract worth over $6.5 million, and I can't get a $250,000 line of credit from a bank. I mean, does that make any sense to anybody? And again, most of my suppliers, concrete suppliers, my equipment rental, they'll wait 30 days to get paid. But how can you tell your workforce, your employees, oh yeah, you guys, come back in 30 days, I'll give you a check in 30 days. That doesn't work. I have to pay my field people once a week. I pay my office people every 2 weeks. And that's part of the problem that I'm having from the owner's perspective. Now, from a hiring perspective, in construction, like Ralph said, I have a lot of people that really want to work. They come in the office, they fill out applications. I'm not more of a guy like, online, you come in my office, you sit down, so I'm the exception to the rule. But most people that I do know, like a lot of the general contractors, White and Turner, who's a big one, Marques builders, you have to go online for those people and fill out applications to be a project manager, to be a supervisor, to work in the office. So again, from that perspective, I see a lot of people that are having that problem. But what I really wish I could get is just more people to really want the initiative to just, like he was talking about, Mr. Cohen was talking about, get job training funding. If you don't have places where people that are ex-offenders, we went to the jailhouse tour, April, if you don't have people that really can get funding to become a concrete finisher or a laborer or things of that nature, like Ms. Sinnick just said, I don't have time to wait for you, unfortunately, to say, okay, I'll hire you because I like you. At the end of the day, I still have a company to run. I have to be responsible to banks, bonding companies, and I have to have people that have the knowledge. And if you don't train these people to have applications and to have the funding to do this type of stuff, we're going to have a problem in Baltimore City, in the greater Baltimore area. But like Ralph said, it's just a mix. I mean, some people who come to the office, they don't want to work, but I can kind of weed through those people. But I would say 90% of people that come to the office want to have a job. But at the end of the day, you have to keep funding available for job training, to get employment. But as an employer, if I don't have funding from a bank, I can't hire you to run my jobs. And that's been my biggest difficult issue here and so far with my business, April.
Thank you. Yeah, Jason.
Actually, I want to let the other panelists speak, and then I'll come back.
Okay, sure, okay. So David Troy is a tech entrepreneur, and I asked him to be on this panel because I think I knew that this panel was really, really heavy on one side of workforce and economic development. I think he's brilliant with regard to our emerging markets as a state and as a region, but also in the Baltimore area. He's got a strong commitment to Baltimore. So I really want you to kind of talk about your knowledge of sort of the emerging opportunities for employment. We get lots of information from different sources. We're all in the same kind of circles up here. It's always been a struggle for me knowing sort of the numbers of how many people are unemployed and underemployed, but also undereducated and underskilled when you know what the larger picture says with regard to what jobs are emerging. And most of them are white collar, which require a high level of specialty. But you also have some really interesting ideas about how you can bridge the high level of specialty fields with manufacturing and other things that can help us kind of bridge some of those work gaps. So I would love for you to expound upon that.
Yeah, as has been mentioned, we lost a lot of our factories a long time ago. And in the David Simon piece that was mentioned earlier, he made the comment that the drug trade is the only factory that's still hiring in town. And in a lot of ways, that's a true statement. As April mentioned, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm very interested in the power of entrepreneurship to change people's lives. I started my first business at age 14, and that's been 25 years ago, and I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And so part of what I've been trying to do is to help understand how entrepreneurship can be used as an economic development strategy in Baltimore in particular. I would argue that for much of the last 30 years, we haven't had any economic development strategy in Baltimore City. And the reason I say that is because if you really look at the last major economic development strategy that was put in place, it was, to help develop things like Harbor Place and the aquarium and, a lot of the things that we now see today. But a lot of those plans, a lot of those early plans were laid in the early 1970s, and even as a result of some of the early planning going back into the 1950s with the formation of the GBC and Charles Center and all, things like that. So, I think that it's time for us to develop a new economic development strategy, and I think that if you look at the trends in economic development over the last 25 years or so, what you've seen is that, for a long time the focus was on bringing Fortune 500 companies to places like Maryland, and frankly, we're losing more Fortune 500 companies than we're gaining companies like Legg Mason, which have been on the Fortune 500 and no longer on the Fortune 500, and that's no longer a viable strategy, I don't believe, to really grow our workforce. So I think that simultaneous to this shift, we've also seen the development of some amazing new businesses here in the Baltimore region. Companies like Under Armour and Bill Me Later and Advertising.com and SourceFire. These are multi-billion-dollar companies in some cases, multi-hundred-million-dollar companies that are employing lots of people and have really created wealth where none existed. And they were not the result of economic development strategy. No economic developer in state or local office decided to invent or incent Under Armour to form here. That was Kevin Plank. He decided to start a business here because he's from here and he loves this place and he loves what he's making. So, I think we need to start to think about how do we get a lot more companies to form here. And I think we also need to pay attention to the kinds of jobs that we're creating. I think that it's all well and good to talk about high-end cybersecurity jobs, companies like CyberPoint, whatever, that are coming about very quickly and providing wonderful, high-paying jobs. But if we don't also take care of the folks who are in the middle and lower end of our employment ranks, we're going to have a serious problem on our hands, and we need to start creating these kinds of factories. And I mean that in a virtual and physical sense. We need factories where we're making things. We need to be creating jobs for people who can work at all kinds of different levels. And so what I've started to do is to study entrepreneurship as a mechanism for creating these kinds of jobs and looking at what examples have worked elsewhere. There's an organization out of San Francisco called sfmade.org, which is an alliance of local manufacturers that are making goods in San Francisco with all manner of pay scales involved. And they're really changing lives, and they're changing the fabric of the city in a real way. So we did an event here at MICA January, called Create Baltimore, and in that we did a session on local manufacturing. We had maybe 40 or so people interested in how do we get real manufacturing off the ground again here in Baltimore using entrepreneurial skills to do it. And there's a lot of people that really resonate with this message. So we decided to go ahead and start to try to organize another event focused solely on local manufacturing in Baltimore. We're going to bring in some of the people from San Francisco who are making this work there, and we're going to try some of these best practices here. So I would encourage any of you who are interested in this topic to please contact me, because I think it's something that's real, and I think that we could really make a huge difference in Baltimore. And the last point I'd like to make is that the thing that you see with entrepreneurs and with startups these days is that the cost to start a new technology business have dropped dramatically. 10 years ago, it might have cost $10 or $20 million to start a new large-scale technology business. These days, you can start businesses for $150,000, $200,000. That same thing is happening even with things like in manufacturing. So what might have used to cost a few $1 million, maybe it costs $1 million now to start a small-scale manufacturing business. And all the biggest things in the world start small, so you have to start somewhere. And I think that the barrier to entry for this kind of creative development has finally been lowered to a point where we can start to do it, but we have to be serious about it, and we have to develop a real economic development strategy that incorporates this kind of thinking. So
and I know that a part of your conversations with regard to the manufacturing industry has something to do with making sure that people have a livable wage.
Absolutely.
Which is really, a huge issue with a lot of the manufacturers we see in the area. I mean, I can tell you stories about my aunt and my mom who work at Under Armour who are not making enough money to be able to retire. And so that's one of the things that, I step outside of my helmet on this and just get, as a person, we've got to make sure that there's some professional ethics with regard to what we accept in this area so that the people of Baltimore can thrive.
Well, and
My
the key
mother
to
can
that
retire.
is, margins and creativity and markets
right.
and all that. So that's where we need to bring our best and brightest entrepreneurs
And you
to
can't,
the-
you
to the
cannot
table to do
dehumanize
that.
people by making them work ridiculous hours and not paying them enough
Sure,
to have a
yep.
good life, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm off of that, for now. So, what say you, people of Baltimore, how would you amplify workforce and economic development? Let's have this conversation. We're gonna take 3 questions at a time. Don't all jump at once. Tell us who you are, where your neighborhood, what's your neighborhood, what's your hood?
Plato Hieronymus, Tuscany, Canterbury. It's interesting, the market is getting more and more complex. Jobs are getting more and more sophisticated and arcane. And it sounds like, to a certain extent, there's some city resources that aren't being utilized. I heard somebody say, we got to get the word out about it. Funding is always going to be too scarce. I mean, there's, before these cuts, there probably still wasn't enough to do what you wanted to do. The idea of training skills, hard skills, important to get to a certain level, but in this increasingly complex market, those hard skills, even if you have those hard skills in spades, it's still difficult. So that all said, how do you sort of approach the idea of training people to become agents of change so that they themselves, they buy in to the extent that I'm not just here to get the skills to be able to take a job that's available for me, but that I go into my community, I embrace it, I change it, I am an agent of change.
Okay. 2 more questions? One here. Oh, well.
Joseph Kane, Morgan State University. My question is, I heard a lot about how we can, a lot of programs up here are developing what I consider shortcut ways to get into the workforce, 3-week programs and training and so forth. What kind of, do these programs that we're talking about offer some type of long-term, psychological change into the idea of that, we give you a 3-week training, you can get a job, but it doesn't change the person's mindset as far as, that's not going to keep me a job. I can work for 20 years. So do these programs offer any type of psychological change for the person, help for the person as far as these programs go?
Yeah, it's the second time, there's one with Scott Burkholder back there. It's the second time we've heard today a concern about life skills training.
Life skills, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Scott Burkholder, I live in Fells Point. It's interesting that a number of the panelists are working on teaching individuals to be, or equipping them with the skills that they don't rely on handouts, so they're sustainable, shall we say. So my question is, how are you as organizations becoming sustainable so that you're not relying on handouts?
Wow.
Oh.
Thanks, Scott. What say you?
I would like to address this young gentleman's question along with this gentleman here. I think there's some symmetry between your 2 questions because there's a psychological change that has to take place prior to moving forward in your life and progressing, especially with the clients that we serve. Understand at the Center for Urban Families, over 90% of our clients are ex-offenders. And that lifestyle or that subculture of being incarcerated is completely different from the culture that we live in outside of incarceration. So when they come to us, generally they come in straight out. They don't even have the dress clothes they need to participate, so we get that for them. However, that's a process. And once we get them to that point, there is a point where we have to help them address, okay, you're no longer living in this subculture. Now you're in this competitive market where you once were superior because of your physical stature or your shrewd nature. Now you have to take those skills and apply it to be a professional. And for some, that's an easy transition. And for others, it's completely difficult. And they fall back to the ways where they felt comfort. But I think in terms of being a change agent, we had an issue at CFUF where for some of the trainings I was providing, I couldn't place the clients we serve in those trainings because of their barriers. So I had to recruit outside. And then we had to discuss, okay, who are we? Because I'm recruiting an additional group that's matching in terms of numbers the same numbers we're recruiting for our Strive program. So what I came up with is our model has to stratify everybody. It's not, we don't say you can't come in, but the process in which we intake and provide training must form people to say, okay, this is something I can do, or maybe I need to get myself together, then come back and see if I'm ready. Because it's one thing to tell somebody they can't do versus them making that decision themselves. And we can't be in a position where we tell somebody they can't be successful. They need to make that decision for themselves. And so if you have a process where they have to answer that question up front, can I be successful, or do I need to work on some stuff before I come back? That helps them as well as the people we can serve. So now we have the people who are ready or say they're ready, and then we assist them, and while those others are getting themselves together, then they can come on board.
Okay.
I'm going to step into your question and yours, talking about, becoming sustainable. This is an alarming fact that I read in USA Today from when I played football. I played in the NFL for 5 years. After 2 years after retirement, an NFL athlete, 78% of NFL athletes go broke within 2 years of retirement. I mean, there was one guy who made $12 million in a 12-year career, and a year after that, he was broke from a bad real estate deal. So psychologically, I had to transition from being, like you said, a big, imposing, whatever you want to call it, stature person, to go into the business world where my size doesn't really mean I'm going to get a job. I mean, you have to be shrewd. You have to be very, meticulous and very, very just, tell people what you want to do. But intimidation does not work in the business world. So I learned that the hard way. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is I had to change my status in the way I thought about things to become a better businessman. And it took some lumps and bruises, but now, we're working for a lot of large contractors, doing things like that. Excuse me, to your point, the way I can sustain my business is going after more jobs, marketing, being in the streets, getting up a cash flow, getting up a big basis for my company, where the cash in my bank account is bigger than my line of credit, so I don't have to worry about, I can go out and hire people, and I have to worry about, well, if the bank doesn't work with me, I can't hire you, because it doesn't matter. So that's a process that takes a long time, and I'm building that up, I just turned 30, so by the time I'm in my mid-30s,